Today we're going to be looking at the HGUC Varguil. Looking at the box art, we can see that it's in that dreaded P-Bandai monochrome with the MS standing up here on the right and an action pose with its funnels on the left. On the short side of the box, it's practically just the upper half of the Varguil, the model number, and the Mobile Suit Moon Gundam logo. On the long side of the box is just the model number AMS-123X Varguil. On the other side, it's just the same with the addition of the product details. Finally, the box is quite big and heavy with little space left inside the box for the runners. Also, if the box wasn't clear enough, this was released as P-Bandai. Now, onto the contents. First up, here we have the A2 runner molded in a pale purple color and was first used on the Moon Gundam. We have two of these. It has parts for the legs and arms that are the same with excess parts here for the psycho plates. Also, the sections here and here indicated with the gates are for the A1 version of this runner that doesn't come with this kit and only had parts for the other psycho plates. Next, we have the B runner in the same purple color. It has the parts that are not duplicated like the skirts, the mirrored parts for the legs, and the beam tomahawk handle. It also has gates here, with this section having the parts for the head on the original Moon Gundam, which are omitted for this kit. Last of the purple runners, we have the C1 and C2 runners. C2 is a duplicate of this upper section here. Up here, it's more duplicated parts for the shoulders, and down here are parts for the torso. Here we have the D runner in gray, which is also taken straight from the Moon Gundam, with parts for the beam rifle, legs, hands, backpacks, inner skirting, and even the Moon's psycho plate holding arm. Onto the A runner, we have two of these, also in gray, and all of these parts are just for the joints and other inner part. It also has an omitted section here, which only had parts for the psycho plate holding arm for the Moon. The F1 runner here is molded in that transparent purple for the beam effects of both the butterfly edges and the beam tomahawk. Next is the F2 runner, back in that gray color with an omitted section here, which was for the chin and V-fin jewel of the Moon Gundam. Another one molded in gray is the G1 runner with parts for the arms, legs, and the beam tomahawk with an omitted section here which only had the V-fin of the Moon. The G2 runner then is molded in the same yellow as the Moon Gundam, but it has an addition here for the front skirt. This kit doesn't use the Moon's H runner, which was just for the eyes. So next we have the I runner. We have two of these molded in gray, and this is the first runner new to this kit. It has parts for the funnels and their holders, the back tanks, and some other stuff. Now what's weird about this is that Bandai named this the I runner and not the H runner. For different kits with the same base kit, they usually recycle the lettering if a runner is skipped. In this case, it was probably deliberate so they can eventually release the Varguil with the G doors head in their original colors. Or I could be wrong because the naming of the Moon's I1 and I2 runners would also conflict with this kit's I runner. Lastly then, we have the J runner. It's molded in that same pale purple and is new to this kit. Obviously, it's all parts for the head and the face. Just like in the original Moon Gundam runners, there are no multicolor runners, and Bandai instead opted for smaller runners molded in different colors separately. Now here we have the marking stickers. Here we have the sensors. Number 3 here is going to be for the mono eye with 2 extras, while the rest are for the yellow markings with strips of transparency to them, which can be found on the design of the Varguil. Lastly then we have the manual, and in typical P-Bandai fashion, it's all in grayscale. On the front we can see the parts list with some excess parts. Opening it up then, I can tell you that it's just your typical high-grade assembly guide. It's assembled in the order of torso, head, arms, then legs. On the back, it's just more of the same. The manual continues onto the hips, backpack, funnels, and then the weapons. But lastly here, it shows us its opening backpack funnel gimmick. And finally down here is a less than ideal color guide. It should be noted that unlike the Moon Gundam, this kit doesn't come with any action base at all, which is rather unfortunate. With that out of the way, now onto the review. Here we have the Varguil all snapped up and with everything that it comes with. First off, right away you can see that the Varguil is just brimming with detail to the point where it's quite easy to mistake for a real grade. Everything you see is part separated except for the mono eye, head sensors, and yellow markings. The markings are easy to apply and look good, except for the ones here on the knees, which are just a wee bit too long. And as you can see here, its transparent sections don't look as good because of the dark plastic behind it. The other markings are above the wrist, both sides of each shoulder, below the elbow, above the heel, and lastly on the ankle armor, which is the only one that has been engraved underneath. Personally, the other parts of the suit should have been given the same markings, like on the side of the head, the torso or the front skirts, the side shoulder flap armor, the hand covers, the funnel racks, the side of the legs, and most especially the back skirt. Looking at the head, this is a completely new mold from the Moon Gundam. It's rocking that mono eye as well as a Gundam faceplate and chin, which is pretty unique as far as Xeon designs go. The mono eye sadly doesn't move, and there is no molding to help you place the eye sticker just like the origin Zaku's, so you just have to try and center it as best you can. But there are two extra eye stickers, just in case though. The head has such a high amount of detail which can stand out a bit compared to the rest of the body, so I recommend panel lining it a bit lighter with respect to the body. As for the antenna, they look cool and the front one has some Zaku inspiration to it, but both of them had the absolute worst placement for safety flags. They were such a pain to get rid of, so I recommend extreme caution when removing them. As for its articulation, the head can look up that far, not a lot, and can look down that far, where it can hide its face, it can go around 360, it can slightly tilt side to side, and we got that giggity giggity. Onto the torso and skirts, we can see some pretty nice detailing. The chest vents and the crotch thrusters are yellow parts. There is a space here between the pipes and the body itself, which again is a lot of attention to detail. The hip is quite movable despite being able to stay solid. We have a bit of an ab crunch, some side to side tilting, and quite the limited rotation. The front skirts then can open up that far, revealing some nice detail behind here. But unfortunately, it's hollow, and the thrusters have missed the opportunity to be colored in gray or yellow, which is disappointing. The side skirt, however, does have some gray sticking out on a thruster with some vent detailing on the inside, but it only comes up and down and has no rotation. The back skirt then is also very detailed with lots of gray sticking out. However, they did miss an opportunity here on the sides, but from the line art it's also missing some yellow here at the circles. Like the side skirts, it can only go up and down, and if you pull it up hard enough, it will come off to reveal that amazing inner detailing that can hardly be seen. Also, this hole right here is for the action base connector that this kit comes with. The shoulders are also nicely detailed, but looking at the top side, it's very plain, and they also miss an opportunity to make these thrusters here color separated, which is a big shame. On the inner side then, there is a yellow piece but inside a gray piece, along with this shoulder flap, which are then sandwiched between front and back pieces and covered by this top part here. The entire arm can go that far thanks to the shoulder assembly here at the torso, rotate, and do everything that a ball joint does. The flaps move as far in as the arm and can move out that far. The arms can rotate here and can move as far as the flaps. The elbow bends on 2 points, then the hands are just on ball joints. The arm itself also has a lot of details, and an interesting one is that this one, which suggests that a clip for a shield can be used, but alas, this doesn't come with one. On the back of the arm is where we have the butterfly edges stored. These things come off easily when you're handling the kit, and looking inside, there is a hole there. We'll come back to that in the butterfly edges later. The legs are also heavily detailed except for the upper leg, which is just molded in one piece. Underneath the skirt, we do have a universal joint with a connected peg that can swing down a bit. The leg can go to the sides and that far, and since the side skirts can only swivel up and down, this is as far to the sides it can go. Forwards then, it can go 90 degrees, and as for the knee bend, we get about that far, which reveals a lot of beautiful detailing from the separating armor. Definitely not your average high grade. On the lower leg, we get lots of heavy detailing. This section here has that thruster in gray, and this whole thing can go out a bit, but not much. We also get some gray vents here, and even a tiny bit on each side of the knees. On the back, we have an opening thruster gimmick that opens up that far, exposing some pretty plain surface, which is also present on the inner side of the leg. For the feet then, we also get some pretty good details with some good articulation, being able to tilt that far out and that far in. If you move the ankle armor, the feet can go up that far and back that far. Also with some good detail on the exposed joints, while the ankle armor can only go that far. I wouldn't pose it with the feet all the way down, Gundam Seed style, as it leaves a pretty big gap here and it wouldn't look good being seen from below. Moving on to the backpack, we have something that is very reminiscent of the Sazabi with its funnel pods and fuel tanks. The pods are connected to a joint piece that gives it a pretty big degree of motion, but also sadly makes it quite easy to remove. The joint itself has ball joints and a peg here for swiveling. The pod itself can split open, which makes it possible to take out the funnels, which there are 3 for each pod for a total of 6. Below the pods, we have the fuel tanks, which are on ball joints and are removable. Personally, I prefer to take them off because they don't look good just hanging there. Sadly, the fuel tank ball joints don't fit onto the thruster holes here. As for the pods, you can take it out and put it on the slot for the fuel tanks and it actually fits well in there. You can even put a fuel tank on where the joint should be. Lastly, at the top here is where the beam tomahawk is stored and it just goes into the slot right here. As for its accessories, it's pretty sparse. We have the beam rifle, beam tomahawk, butterfly edges, their beam effects, the aforementioned funnels, and an action base connector. As for the hands, we have the normal holding hands, open hands, and the trigger finger hand for the right. The beam rifle is nicely detailed and looks like the beam shot rifle, but it's actually a bit smaller than that. It can be held by the right trigger finger hand, and the Varguil can hold it just like that. Moving on to the beam tomahawk, it's composed of just 2 parts. The design is actually not accurate to the line art. The handle should be both longer and colored in gray. And there is no beam saber hole here, sadly. The effect part then just slides on like that and it's pretty stable on there. To hold it then, we just use one of the holding hands and voila! As for the butterfly edges, they are normally just stored here at the back of the arms and can just be taken out. Both of its ends can rotate 360 and we got beam effects that go on just like that. You can arrange it a number of ways and at different angles, but personally it feels kinda stupid and would have been better if there was a way to hold them in the hand. The funnels themselves look like a nice cross between the Cubelace and the Sazabi, which was the entire point of this MS, but they do look nearly identical to the Kshatriyas. The funnels don't have a peg hole, so you're gonna need to be a bit creative if you want to display them flying about. Lastly, we have the action base connector that just pegs onto underneath the back skirt, and you can use any 3mm peg hole to hold it onto right here. Size comparison then, here it is next to the standard size Origin Gundam and the always tiny Core Gundam. Here is the Varguil next to the RG Unicorn, and since I don't have any other CCA Xeon kits, especially the Sazabi, here it is next to the HGUC New Gundam, minus a few parts. As for the excess parts, we do get a lot. First is we get these parts for the Psycho Plates and they are just 2 pairs of mirror parts. I could definitely see this being used as a custom built shield, but they're gonna need some modding as they won't peg to each other. Other excess parts in purple are for the feet. These are identical to the gray ones used on the actual feet and you can definitely use these if you want. We also get the crotch thruster in gray, which can also be usable. And here we have the arm connector parts used in the Moon Gundam and are pretty useless for the Varguil. The big one connects to the back where the funnel pods are and the small ones connect to the peg at the back of the arm. Another one is an action-based adapter for a square type connection, which is also pretty useless for the kit. I wouldn't recommend using this one. Lastly, here we have the duplicate part for the eyes and I don't really know what you can do with this. Overall then, this is a beautiful kit. The design and molding is on point with the original line art. You get a very poseable kit with lots of gimmicks that's also pretty solid. And as for something that I don't like about the general design, for me the torso is just too small and the legs might just be a bit too long. The front skirts are also too large compared to the torso, and I'm also not a fan of the hip joints being very visible. There should have also been more yellow marking details spread throughout the design, as well as so many lost opportunities for color separated vents that I pointed out earlier. Also, this kit doesn't look the best with only ground poses, so the fact that an action base is not included is quite a big loss. Lastly, the worst thing about this kit is that it's 2,500 yen at minimum. I say minimum because it's P-Bandai. Because it's P-Bandai, you're gonna be paying upwards of 3,000 yen if you're outside of Japan. And I highly doubt this will get reissued often. So it will only get more expensive over time. If you've missed your chance to get this kit, you might want to wait for a P-Bandai release of the Varguil with the G's Door's head, but it's also very possible that Bandai might never release a kit for that. That's all for the Varguil. This has been Conquista Hobby. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like. Tell me what you think about this kit in the comments. And if you want to see more full reviews, don't be afraid to subscribe. I'll see you again next time. But that bendo, ooh, spicy.